don't know what I've recorded and what I haven't, I'm afraid. It's one of those days. We've had no water for a while, so the water board keep ringing me. So we're just working up and down these trees. I'm just going to add a bit more dark down this side. It's quite therapeutic and nice that it's sort of working your way up. Now, when there's a join like this one or this one on this side, they're normally darker at the join if you have a look at some trees. I do tend to sort of darken around that area. And a little bit of less is more with it. So, still with my trusty round rigger, we're going to go back over to this side, and we're going to just do a really, really wet, very, very light. So this is ultramarine blue and Payne's grey, but any sort of very, very light wash. Lots and lots of water. We're just going to run a line down this side of the tree. Always keeping it to the left. And in that helps with the sense of making the tray 3D a bit rounder. It makes a shadow side. It's where the wax really comes into play. It's beautiful. And if you think it's a bit dark, just wash your brush and wet it off a little bit. It's fine, it'll dry. And that just helps build a 3D sense. Plenty of water always. Plenty of water. So creating the shadow side of the tree. And just wash it away. Put it in, wash it away. Don't be frightened, just like that. Shadow side run down. Always on the same side of the tray, so if your light's coming from the right, your shadow's on the left, and vice versa. If your light's coming from the left, your shadow is on the right. Just gonna dab that up a little bit. Okay, and then we're going to let that dry again. You can really see the salt working now. So this I think is dry enough to paint into, so I'm going to just mix in this brown and this dark Payne's grey to make like a dark brown colour. And I'm just going to bring in some branches off the tray. Our branches normally go upwards. Rigger brushes are brilliant for doing branch work. And if you miss a bit, it's fine, because they could be from behind. And just drop in a little bit of colour where your branch is coming up from. Remember that they're larger on where they're attached to the tray. And because we've got those little branches in, you don't have to attach too many of these painted branches. I do quite like doing it while the salt's still there. some of that dark into that gap at the base of the fork of that tree there as well. And as I've said before, the watercolour dries lighter. So if you think it looks a bit too dark, that'll probably mean that when it's dry, you're about right. You're always better off erring though on the side of caution and going for lighter, and then you can always make it darker. You can add darks onto things, whereas it's much more difficult to regain the light. You may have noticed that sometimes I go over some of the spaces that I've scratched. Leave that to dry. Okay, I'm just mixing up a little bit of ultramarine and either rose madder or alizarin crimson, any of those sort of pinky purpley colours will work to make a purpley bluey colour, maybe a little bit more blue into that for our shadow colour. I'll put a bit more water into it, quite watery. You can see it easily moves along the paper. So the light's coming through this way, so I'm going to run a bit of shadow along from under the trees. You alright there, Mum? That's my cat. And then I always run the shadow colour up the trunk a little bit. So I'm going to go with the same. And the shadows help get a sense of the bank of the snow coming up. Plenty of water, soften off some of those. And then I'm just making these a little bit lighter. Shadow colour up the sides and then across. to drop some of that shadow colour into these grasses too. And then what's left I'm just going to drop down the edge of these trees to deepen the shadows. A nice way of building texture and movement on the trees and on the grass around this little snowy bank. Just going to add a little bit under here as well. So a nice way. Sorry that. And so we wait again for everything to dry, and then I might just get some white gouache out or some Dr. Martens Food Proof. Give it a good splatter, because splattering's always good. Just having a look round, I might, with a thirsty brush, I might just lift off